Hey everybody, welcome to the Solo Soulscast. I'm Shane, I'm your host. Let's get to it. This is episode 6? Episode 6. That's pretty cool. This is so far going much better than my original foray into the solo podcasting world. So I'm pretty happy about that. Hopefully everyone enjoyed episode 5.5, which I released just a few days ago. It's kind of a mini episode that I wanted to talk about, that I made to talk about the ridiculous mobile game that was released, that was officially a product from Bandai Namco and backed by GameStop, I guess, called Slashy Souls. I felt compelled to make an episode about it because it had been released and I wanted to spit something out. I don't know if it fully came across in that 15 minutes, but it is not a good game. It loses its luster after about 5 minutes, and it's so glitchy and the controls are shitty that it's not fun to enjoy the game. It's not enough to enjoy the game. Even though the aesthetic is pretty neat, I like the graphics, and the Dark Souls series nods are cool. And callbacks and all that kind of stuff. And even though there was an update to the game just like the day after it was released, I played it after the update, and all the same bugs were prevalent. So I don't know what the update did, but apparently you can fight Smo, I think, which is pretty cool. I haven't gotten to him, but I watched a video of some guy get to him, and that was pretty neat. But yeah, so download it and play it for 5 minutes so you can see what it is, and then delete it. Or just don't even download it. I don't know. I still have it on my phone. I haven't deleted it yet, and I want to because I'm probably never gonna touch it again. But I haven't yet. So that's that. But that was my little episode. But this is a normal Solo Soulscast 30-40 minute episode. Hopefully not too much longer than that. But I'm your host. My name's Shane. You guys know that by now. You can find me in a few different places. On Instagram, you can find me there. My handle is Kalameet, Kalameet, just like the Black Dragon from the Dark Souls DLC. Not a coincidence. My Twitter handle is the same. Replace the L with a 1, so it would be K-A-1-A-M-E-E-T. Still annoyed by that one. And then you can find me on YouTube, which is where I do most of my social media-ing right now. Search Shane Norton. You're most likely listening to this on YouTube right now, so I don't know if I need to really put this in here, but whatever. Search Shane Norton. My profile picture is of a beer, a bottle of beer, and I have, I'm somewhere around close to 180 videos on this exact point in time. If you listen to this a year from now, it's probably going to be 400, who knows. So I'm easily distinguishable at any rate. Let's talk about what I'm playing, because I like to talk about that. I just finished Axiom Verge recently, and that was, I think, last week. Great game. If you love Metroid, or Super Metroid especially, or any other Metroidvania style games, I would highly recommend this one. It was a lot of fun. Pretty hard, pretty frustrating at points. Some of the bosses, especially one of the bosses towards the end, was unbelievably frustrating. And that took away the fun of the game a little bit. But there's a huge map. There's a lot to explore. I beat the whole game. It took me 20 hours, and truthfully, probably 5 of those hours I was sleeping, because I have a tendency to start playing a game kind of late at night and then just fall asleep, and the game will be on for 2 or 3 hours before I wake up. So 5 or 6 of those hours are probably just I fell asleep and the game was still on. But I played it for, we'll say, 15 hours, and I only uncovered, because it tells you at the end, I only uncovered like 75% of the map, and I think I got less than 50% of the items. So there's a lot of stuff to find. I'm just really bad at games like that. I'm really bad at exploring and finding things. I kind of lose my not interest, but I don't like exploring. I am at the very end of Titan Souls, which I started a while back, and if we're talking about frustrating games, Titan Souls is the most frustrating game I've played since any of the other Souls games that I've been playing. It is aggravating to a new level. I'm on the very, very last boss. Minor spoilers, I guess, for this game, which barely has a story. There's 18 bosses throughout the game. There's 17 bosses, and then there's an 18th boss who's like the final boss. But if you beat all 18 bosses, because you can get to that final boss without killing all of them, if you kill all the other bosses, then there's a secret final boss. And I'm on the secret final boss, and he's a pain in the ass, just like 90% of the other bosses in that game. So I know this isn't the Titan Soulscast, but it's got souls in the title. So I'm gonna give myself a minute to just get this off my chest. I will never play this game ever again. And it's strange because I've never experienced a game where I've played through it and I've kept going and I've been so mad, so angry, and I've just been thinking the whole time, I can't wait to finish this fucking game. I can't wait to finish this game. I'm never playing this game again. Like controller breaking levels of anger. And yeah, I'm still playing it, and I have like 6 hours into it. It keeps track of your deaths. I'm pretty sure I'm well over 300. And it's not a joke, because the whole game is you just fight bosses. Like I said, there's 19 bosses, and that's the entire game. Bosses take one shot to kill, and they have one weak point. You also only take one shot to kill, so that's a dynamic. So if I would ever suggest it to somebody, I don't know. I hate it. I hate it in so many levels, yet I'm still playing it. I might even play it tonight to try to beat it. So, I don't know. Buy it, sure. And that's my Titan Souls cast for the night. Tune in next week when I talk about how much I hate the game again. Last week I talked about Evil Within and Little Big Planet that my wife and I both played. We haven't touched them in weeks. So that's that. And finally, I did start Dark Souls last week, and I'm going to keep playing it this week. Very excited about it. I've been posting my boss battles up on YouTube, which I'm also very excited about. So that's that. That's what I'm playing. Now that we're 8.5 minutes in, maybe 8 minutes in, because my intro that I'm going to cut out was kind of long. Let's jump in. What the hell are we talking about this week? Well, I'll tell you. We're talking about Souls fatigue. Is it a thing? Can it happen? And what I mean by that is, can people get sick of the games? Can you get burned out? Is Souls fatigue a thing? And basically, are they releasing the games too quickly, too fast, you know? And the short of it is, yes, the fatigue can certainly exist, because any game, any series, anything, no matter how much you love it, you can get sick of it. It's just too much of a good thing. So there's some people out there that think there's now too much of a good thing. Like, are they just turning the Souls series, which we all love so dearly, into just the next Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed or Battlefield or whatever, where a game comes out every year and there's minimal changes year to year, and they don't do a whole lot besides maybe upgrade the graphics, because they know, regardless of what they do, if they can release a game every year, they're going to make boatloads of money, and people don't care if it's essentially the same game. How much difference is there between Call of Duty Ghosts and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3? I know my COD friends, which I do have a decent amount of COD friends, will probably get on me for that, but people are afraid that the Souls games might be coming to this. Now, I'm going to get into that a little bit. I'm going to first talk about my personal experience with Souls fatigue, and in regards to this very podcast and the podcast that currently doesn't exist, which I used to do. The regular Soulscast, I'm going to start calling it the Solo Soulscast. We did for 14 episodes. Basically, we released an episode a week. We might have missed like 1 or 2 weeks until the end, because the time between episode 13 and episode 14 was like 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe even more. But essentially, my cohort Adam, who's the brainchild of the Soulscast, essentially, he got sick of them. He definitely experienced Souls fatigue, because his first Souls game was Bloodborne, which he got whenever it came out, March, April of last year. And he played through and beat that. He played through and beat Dark Souls and all the DLC for Dark Souls. He played through and beat most of Dark Souls 2. I want to say, like, I don't know, 80-90%. And then he started Demon Souls as well. So all this Souls was it's basically like the only game he played, only series he played, and that was like a 3 or 4 month span. So he stopped like maybe a quarter of the way through Demon Souls because he was just burned out, and I don't blame him one bit because that's a lot of Souls. So that's one of the reasons that we've been on hiatus. There's lots more. There's more like life reasons, life. It happens, unfortunately. Personally, for me, I have experienced some Souls fatigue. I've only experienced it once. When Dark Souls 2 came out, I'm going to pull up the wiki too to make sure I get all my dates right, because this is going to be a bit of a date-heavy episode. Dark Souls 2 came out in 2014. And I bought it when it came out, and I played the hell out of it. It came out in March, maybe? Something like that. I played through it. I got the Platinum Trophy. That took a lot of time to do. And I played it non-stop. It was the only game I played. And then the DLC started coming out. So I obviously started getting the DLC. Okay, sorry, I'm going to stop myself for a sec. March 11th, 2014 is when Dark Souls 2 came out. And the Dark Souls, the DLC for it started coming out in July, I think. So from March to May, the only game I played was Dark Souls 2. And I got the Platinum, so I played the shit out of it. Like 2.5 playthroughs, I think. And the DLC came out, so then I played it for a week or two in July, a week or two in August, and then by the time the final DLC came out, I was kind of sick of it. And that sucks because it's my favorite series, and to be sick of your favorite thing because you just played it too much is kind of weird. So, kind of a short story, very long. It can happen. Obviously, anything you love, you can get sick of. I'm learning that I'm actually getting very sick of pizza and fast food, which are things that I love dearly, but way too much of that. Now, specifically, what spurred me on to decide to have this be the topic for the Solo Soulscast this week. I went to Giant Bomb, which is a video game website, obviously, but they have a lot of great Souls forums, and throughout Dark Souls, and then all throughout Dark Souls 2, and throughout all Bloodborne, that was the main place that I went to read theories about the story, to find out secrets, to just read what other real Souls fans thought about the games and how they were going, how they beat certain bosses, how they got through areas, what were people's favorite areas, least favorite, all that stuff. And I found that Giant Bomb had great discussions about this stuff. The users on Giant Bomb, all the Souls fans were great. So I haven't been to Giant Bomb in a while because people weren't really updating the Bloodborne one anymore. So I decided to go back and check it out. I thought, I haven't checked out Giant Bomb for Dark Souls 3 in a long time. So I went to the forum. Maybe I'll even post a link in the YouTube description, actually, just to make it a little easier. I went to the forum, and one of the first topics is, are the frequent Souls releases weakening your enthusiasm? And I've seen this elsewhere, maybe in Dark Souls 3, maybe under the Bloodborne forums, but I've seen something like that. So I clicked on it, and then it's a poll. And the poll is pretty simple. There's two choices. Two choices for the question, are the frequent Souls releases weakening your enthusiasm? And there's 443 votes. And this is how it turns out. 59% voted for nope, keep them coming. 41% voted for I'm not as enthused as I once was. I mean, the majority still say keep them coming. We want games maybe not every year, but frequently. But that's a lot of people that had their enthusiasm take a hit because now Dark Souls 3 is coming out a year after Bloodborne, And if we look at the releases, like I just said, Dark Souls 2 was March of 2014. Bloodborne came out, I want to say March of 2015, and pretty concurrent with Bloodborne, maybe like a month after, the Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin was released. So that's Dark Souls 2 2014, Bloodborne, and then totally updated PS4 Dark Souls 2 in 15. Jesus. And now we're looking at Dark Souls 3, April of 2016. So that's 3 years, 3 games. And then, if you think to how it used to be, Demon Souls came out in 2009, and Dark Souls 1 came out in 2011. So that was a 2-year gap, and that was late 2011. I think it was the fall time. So then Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 2 was like 2.5 years. So it's been about from Demon Souls to Dark Souls was 2, Dark Souls to Dark Souls 2 was 2.5, and now Dark Souls to Bloodborne to Dark Souls 3 was 3 years altogether. So I think that's what people are getting concerned about. And looking over this particular topic in the forum, it's from 19 days ago. It has 2 pages, 86 people talking about it. I haven't read the newest ones because I started doing these notes a couple days ago. But despite the fact that the actual poll has the majority of people still want them to just keep pumping out the Souls games, and pumping out is not the right term because that's like derogatory, like it's a bad thing. People like the frequency in which the Souls games are now coming out. However, reading through the comments, disregarding the actual poll, a lot of people, it seemed to weigh much more heavily in we are not as enthused or just totally sick of the games coming out this fast, which is interesting. And I wrote a little summary of the typical responses that I saw. Outside of these 7, there weren't anything else that was really too different. So there was the people that were just excited for Dark Souls 3, which I'm going to throw out right now. That's me. Then there's people that say they're going to get it, but they're not that excited. They're going to get it just because they're Souls fans, or that's what they do. They get the Souls games. There was a decent amount of people that said that Dark Souls 2 ruined it for them, so they're not excited at all. And I think that means they're probably not getting Dark Souls 3. A lot of people said that Dark Souls 2 just left a bad taste in their mouth. And this harkens back to the whole Dark Souls 2 is the black sheep of the series. Although I will say, with that, some people that said Dark Souls 2 ruined it for them. Bloodborne was a breath of fresh air. So even though Dark Souls 2 sucked for them, Bloodborne was a return to form. So a lot of people said that it was a breath of fresh air, so they are excited. And then that implication being they wouldn't be excited if not for Bloodborne. And then there are some people that say the Dark Souls games, as opposed to Demon Souls or Bloodborne, those 3 games are just too similar. So that tempers their excitement because they just want something different. And then there was a bit of the population that said they are going to get 3, but 3 is where they're stopping. So if they make Dark Souls 4, they're not going to bother with Dark Souls 4. And then there was finally some people that said they're just done with the games and they don't want them anymore. Any of them, they don't care. So those were basically all the responses in some form or another. There were a lot of people that were just excited for Dark Souls 3, but there was a lot that were just not, for a variety of different reasons. A lot of people think they're coming out too fast. A lot of people think that they're just too similar to each other that it's hard to get excited, because if you think of Demon Souls came onto the scene and that was like no other game that anyone had ever seen, so it blew everyone's minds. Dark Souls flipped that script and took a game that was niche and that was pretty obscure, and it was still obscure, but they brought it into the forefront a little bit, and they took a game, Demon Souls, and they made it, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions, much, much better. And they made Dark Souls, and that still caused people to freak out. But then you have Dark Souls 2, where a lot of that allure and that luster wore off. because it's a new game and it's very exciting to have new Souls stuff to play through, unless it's Slashy Souls. But that feeling of excitement is gone. And then Bloodborne, again, it's still exciting, but that mystique, I guess, is gone. A lot of people just think the Dark Souls games, they're too similar. Part of me agrees with that because I now know, going into Demon Souls, I had no idea what the games were. I had no idea how to do anything. And even going into Dark Souls, I knew the mechanics, but enough things were different and they tweaked things that it was still pretty fresh. But going into Dark Souls 2, I basically knew what to expect. I knew how to dodge, I knew how to roll, I knew how to use shields, I knew how to attack and strafe around enemies or do this certain thing to this type of enemy, which appears in every Souls game. Just trying to use generalities. And then it was the same for Bloodborne. Bloodborne is more different to Dark Souls 2 than Dark Souls 2 was to Dark Souls, but not that different. And I know it's probably getting convoluted now. I'm trying to keep it all straight. Bloodborne had the little sidestep dodge instead of a roll, and it was obviously much, much faster. But most of the things that I learned from the first 2 games, I could just apply to Bloodborne, so it wasn't a new experience. The new experience is gone. And I would say the new experience for the Souls series won't be back unless they really take the series in a new direction. Because Miyazaki had said something like Dark Souls 3 will be the turning point. They'll make more Souls games, but I guess that means they're going to be like radically different. I believe Adam and I talked about it on one of our old episodes, but somewhere, I swear, I read or heard or Miyazaki himself said, it was like he was thinking about like a sci-fi game, like a Souls series set in a sci-fi universe, so I don't know, outer space, aliens, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he flirted with that with Bloodborne. So if it was something like that for, let's say, whatever's going to come after Dark Souls 3, maybe not Dark Souls 4, but maybe the spiritual successor to Dark Souls, I guess, that could be something that could breathe new life into the franchise and make people that are kind of jaded by it, make them more excited. And I keep talking like I'm one of these people that's jaded. I'm not. I'm unbelievably excited for Dark Souls 3. More excited than I was for 2. And then maybe even on par to my excitement for Bloodborne. Maybe even a little more than Bloodborne, because everything I hear and read, and I'm trying to keep that to the bare minimum because I really want to go in blind. I hear lots of comparisons to the original Dark Souls, and obviously Miyazaki's back at the helm, just like he was for Bloodborne. I'm just hearing a lot of comparisons to that game, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that. So hopefully all my rambling and using generalities and talking about other people, even though it sounds like I'm kind of talking about my own opinions, hopefully that hasn't been too confusing so far. Unfortunately, I wanted to research more for this topic. This was going to be my most researched episode yet, but my Googling didn't come up with much. Souls fatigue into Google comes up with very little. So I don't know if I had to do like a lot of sleuthing and a lot of digging that I just haven't really had time for. So I'm kind of going off of the Giant Bomb stuff that I read, which does have a big, big community of Souls players and Souls fans. So I'm going off of that. I'm going off my own personal feelings and the feelings of people I know. So in regards to Dark Souls 3 specifically, most of the people I know on Instagram that are Souls fans are very excited. I know I'm very, very excited. I know Adam's very excited. I have some other friends I know are very, very excited on Instagram. I don't know any friends in real life that play it, I don't think. I'd like to talk about my personal feelings now. I just kind of said I'm very excited for Dark Souls 3, and I am. I don't know if Souls fatigue could hit me right now. The only way I see it happening is if we get Dark Souls 4 in 2017 and then Dark Souls 5 in 2018. Then I'm going to start to really get burned out and just get sick of the whole thing. I don't think they're going to do that. I think, well, this is purely conjecture on my part and just more hoping than anything that they're probably going to take a 2-year break, 2 or 3 years now that Dark Souls 3 is out, and is going to probably blow everyone's balls off. I don't know what they plan to do with Bloodborne, if they're going to make a Bloodborne 2, if they're going to do a new series, if they're going to do a spiritual successor to Dark Souls, if they're going to do another direct sequel to Dark Souls. I don't expect to see Dark Souls 4. It'll be something else. Dead Souls, Blood Souls, I don't know. Those are horrible names. Maybe. Or maybe they're pretty good. FromSoft, you guys, if you're listening. Probably not the first person to suggest those, but I'm probably the first person on a solo podcast that 3 people listen to suggest those names. So, just keep that in mind. God, I'm gonna say this has nothing at all to do with the Soul series. When I listen back to these podcasts, because I record them and then I listen back to them, and I do edit them, I edit out the long pauses, and I edit out most of the ums and like unnecessary buts and ands, because I tend to throw those shitty filler words in there. I'm amazed at how many times I say It's like I'm a high school teenage girl giving a presentation, in front of her whole class. And I didn't necessarily mean to be sexist about that, because every goddamn kid in high school just says all the time, and I definitely did it. And I was always aware of it, and I would always be talking to the class, and I would have to read something or cull something up from my memory, and it was just here and there, and it always bothered me because I knew I was saying it, but I just couldn't fucking stop. And I'm trying so hard to not say the word here, because I don't consider this to be professional necessarily. It's certainly not making me any goddamn money, but I want to break from that mold of just saying I don't say literally, so you guys should be thankful for that, because nothing drives me crazier than people who say fucking literally every 19 words. I can't wait till that dies off from pop culture's collective consciousness. I'm hoping it will. Fuck, right there, I just did it. I just did it. Even though I was talking about doing it. God damn it. Okay, look, we're at 30 odd minutes. I'm not gonna say for the rest of this episode, and if I do, I'm gonna eat my hat. I'll slap myself in the face. Not on mic, but Tangent over. And now if I could possibly remember what the hell I was talking about. Oh yeah, I couldn't find much Googling. I could probably dig deeper and find stuff that would probably take me longer, and I just haven't had the time. God, I'm so super aware of saying now that I'm just gonna totally say it, and I'm gonna be very mad at myself. So I'm sorry that I just brought it up. That was a mistake. This is some serious life talk here. This ain't about souls at all. I don't think the Google thing is at all what I was talking about before I broke into my tangent. Shit, I might have to delete that part out of it. I guess we'll see. I'm not fatigued. I am ultra excited for this game to come out. And I'm even playing through Dark Souls right now. And it's not going to ruin my excitement. I sincerely hope it's not going to ruin my excitement. I've been wanting to play through Dark Souls again for a very, very long time. Once I do play through and beat Dark Souls, I'm not going to touch any more Soul stuff until Dark Souls 3 comes out. I'm very excited. Like I said, if they keep releasing them yearly, which I don't think they're going to, if they do, then I think that's going to end up being problematic. I will say, I don't think quality has dipped. I know people hate Dark Souls 2 and all this stuff they did in it they don't like, and they don't like the difficulty and all the crappy bosses and blah, 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 blah. I don't think the Souls series really took a hit in quality from 1 to 2. And it certainly didn't take a hit in quality from 2 to Bloodborne. And from everything I see and read, it certainly hasn't taken a hit in quality from Bloodborne to 3, or from 2 to 3. And that's another thing, if you think of it strictly from a Dark Souls perspective. Dark Souls 1 was 2011, Dark Souls 2 is 2014, Dark Souls 3 is 2016. So that's a little bit longer time. That's about 2 years. 2.5 years, and then 2 years. So that's not too bad. Throwing Bloodborne in the middle kind of messes it up. So that's, I don't know, I've always thought that if you take out Bloodborne, which I do consider part of the Souls series, some people don't, believe it or not, I do consider it part of the Souls series, it's not part of the Dark Souls trilogy. So strictly speaking, Dark Souls trilogy, we're at about 2.5 or 2 years, in between games, which would put a theoretical Dark Souls 4 somewhere in this Q1 of 2018, which, if they didn't release any games in between, if they didn't release a Bloodborne 2 or whatever next year, I think that would be a pretty good amount of time. I know by 2018 I'll be chomping at the bit for more Souls. There's nothing more exciting to me as a video game lover than the prospect of new Souls. And that includes like when DLC is released and if a new game is announced, because no game and probably doesn't even come close to matching the excitement of playing through a Souls game for the first time. Finding all the hidden things, figuring things out, fighting these bosses for the first time, putting story elements together, linking one piece of a story to another, figuring out this thing, all those amazing things that the Souls series gives you that other games do, but not all at once and not to such a degree that the Souls games do. If I could go back and replay Dark Souls for the very first time, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think that would be amazing. I'd like to replay all of them for the first time, and nothing matches that unbridled excitement. So when Dark Souls 4 comes out, or whatever the hell it's called, or Bloodborne 2, you know what I'm talking about, when the next official Souls game that isn't a fucking mobile game comes out, I'm going to be super excited. If it's a yearly thing, that will eventually temper my excitement. Because even though Miyazaki and his team and FromSoft and Namco Bandai and whoever else is working on the game, they always put a huge amount of care into them. And even if they released them yearly, I still don't see them as being bad, because they'll still be better than any other game out there, in my humble opinion. It'll start to get old. You'll be like, well, it's just another Souls game. There's going to be a bunch of bosses. There's going to be a lot of monsters. They're going to be hiding in obscure corners. There's going to be traps you don't see. There's going to be weird things that don't make sense. There's going to be all this crap that just is Souls. And it's going to get old. The formula that once turned people's heads and blew brains, I know I've said that a couple times, I can't think of any more creative way to say it, astounded people, is going to be just the next Souls game. I'm pretty good into this. I'm afraid that I've either veered off topic or I've just been rambling way more than I usually do, and this is going to be like a horrible mess because of it. I really hope that isn't the case. I'm going to try to summarize again what I've been talking about a little bit to make sure I stay more on topic with my Souls fatigue. From what I gather online, and again, it's one forum post on one website, people are starting to get sick of Souls being released so fast. Or at the very least, their excitement is being tempered because the games are coming out too fast. I personally don't think that's a problem. It could be a problem in the future, but I'm so biased towards Souls games, and I'm so just blinded by their beauty that more Souls just cannot be a bad thing for me. And not everyone thinks that way, and that's fine. If you are sick of Souls games, if anyone is sick of Souls games, and if anyone wants to actually leave comments on this on YouTube or somewhere on Instagram or on Twitter, tell me you're sick of them. Tell me why. Tell me if there's a way that they can win you back. If you're like, how many people out there are gonna wait like a year and buy the inevitable Game of the Year stupid edition to Dark Souls 3? Kind of like the Scholar of the First Sin, instead of buying it when it comes out, because the season pass has been leaked, and that might be its own episode, but that, at least that wording, really, really bothers me. I don't like to hear season pass and Dark Souls in the same fucking sentence. But we know there's going to be at least one thing of DLC. So are there people that are going to just wait for that? I'm sure there are. I am certainly not one of them. I will be buying that game the day it's released, and I will be playing the hell out of it. Real quick, since I've gone on like 3 other tangents in this episode, my plan for Dark Souls 3 is to, I assume it comes out on a Tuesday, because that's when games come out, right? Tuesdays? It comes out April 12th, I believe. Yeah, Tuesday. Buy it on Tuesday, have it installed, play it for a couple hours after my daughter goes to bed, and probably record a real, maybe a late night, I'm not sure exactly because this is still a month away, but record a Soulscast, Solo Soulscast to be released that Wednesday, and that'll be like my first 2-hour impression of the game, and it will be full of spoilers, and I'll probably have video running on the YouTube page. Although, will that scare people away? If they don't want to get spoiled on what is going to be in the game, then they wouldn't even listen to the podcast, right? This is all theoretical nonsense that I'll figure out at a later date, but that's my plan. I'll probably have at least one pre-Dark Souls 3 episode where I just talk about what I'm expecting, go more in depth about my excitement, and things like that. Maybe talk more about this season pass nonsense. That'll be an episode for another day. I think right now, the here and now, I wrap this episode up. It's a little long, and that's fine. It's going to probably end up being 45 minutes when all is said and done. But that's okay. So, yeah, so that's it. That's what I think about Souls fatigue. It exists for a lot of people. It's becoming a bigger thing than I would have thought. And if the developers and creators aren't careful, it could become a big, big problem. But as it stands, I don't think it's a big deal. And I think Dark Souls 3 looks amazing, and I think it's going to fucking rock the house. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm not fully done yet. I'm going to tease next week's. Oh, shit, actually. Hold on. Stop. I have a link that I'm going to also post in the YouTube description from Kotaku, which is, that video game website. The title of it is What Game Designers Love and Don't Love About the Souls Games. And I read it yesterday, and it doesn't entirely pertain to this conversation. And I think it was also from a year or 2 years ago or something like that. So it really doesn't pertain to this conversation much at all. But they take a bunch of, I think more indie developers, and they just talk about the Souls series. And it's a great read. It's really fun. So I'm going to post that link in the description for this video. I almost forgot about it. Next week, I'm going to tease it a little bit, and I don't ever do that. I don't know exactly what the topic's going to be. I will tell you it's going to be Bloodborne related. And you're going to want to be there. I may or may not have something up my sleeve. May or may not have an additional voice. I mean, I don't know. I could have just myself talking, Solo Soulscast after all. I'm one guy. You never know. You never know what might happen. You never know when the Solo Soulscast might not fully... never mind. If you guys listen to this the day it comes out, which should be Thursday, like I predicted on the Slashy Souls episode, make sure you listen next week. It's going to be a good episode. We're all going to be pretty happy about it. But I think we're done. I think that's everything. So until we meet again, I'm going to sign off and say thanks for listening, guys. Comment. I'm not going to say like and subscribe. Everyone says that. That kind of bothers me. I don't know why. Because I self-promote myself as much as I can. Nobody cares anyway. So for you few loyal listeners, thank you very much. Shit, I meant to plug something else too. Oh, should I plug it at the very, very, very end of the episode? Okay. We're not done yet. For anyone that likes Twitch and likes to watch streams of video games, my good buddy Max and his friend Greg, they have a pretty great Twitch channel called Game Squad. I'll put a link to them as well. I'm just going link happy in this episode. But Max and Greg, they're two guys, and they play mostly retro games. And they just are pretty hilarious and drunken and very, very, very vulgar and not suitable for work. But Max shared my Facebook post about the Slashy Souls podcast to I think the Game Squad page a couple days ago. And I really appreciated it, so I wanted to return the favor and say anyone that's looking for a really funny, a really crazy Twitch stream, check out Game Squad. And they they stream basically every single day. Sometimes it's not the two of them, sometimes it's just one. There's actually more than two of them, because Greg's wife also does it as well. But check them out. They have a decent amount of subscribers on Twitch, but they could always use more, obviously. So get over there and do it. Tell them I sent you, I guess. You're not going to get anything, but it'd be kind of neat anyway. And they're big on retro, and they know way more about video games than I probably ever will. But they play on all authentic equipment, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, everything in between. Well, I guess not in between those two, because that's not a whole lot. But okay, I'm done. I am shutting this off. I swear I'm not even drunk, but everybody, I'll see you next week. Remember to listen to it because it's going to be great. Bye.